Welcome to A Moment of Zen. Time to sit back and relax as model, actress, mentor, and supermom Zen Sams takes you on a sexy and wild ride, covering the latest in film, fashion, pop culture, politics, and entertainment from the Millennial Mom's perspective. Here's your host, Zen Sams.
Hello, my beautiful friends and loyal listeners. It's always a pleasure to spend my time with you on the airwaves. Thank you for listening and interacting with me on social media. That truly does make it all worthwhile. Please make sure to follow me at Zen Sams. That's Zen with an X, not a Z. And remember that we're now on TV. Tune in at watch.kpmedia.tv and catch A Moment of Zen on the Impact Live channel Sundays at 11 a.m. Eastern. All episodes are also available on demand. We have such a great show lined up for you today. In our Innovation and Tech segment, brought to us by Caldwell Soames, we have returning contributor Paul Caldwell, Chairman and CEO of Caldwell Soames. And today, we're chatting crime and NFTs, wash trading and money laundering on the blockchain, and what weaknesses make this emerging asset class hack-prone, and how do we stay ahead of the curve? In our Fly Me to the Moon segment, we're chatting with one of Virgin Galactic's founding astronauts, Per Wimmer, and we're discussing space tourism and beyond as companies like Elon Musk's SpaceX and Branson's Virgin Galactic get ready to transport civilians to the moon. In our Culinary and Wine segment, brought to us by ABK Cucina, we are featuring foodie Michele Figliuolo, owner of FIG, which stands for Food is Good. We're chatting millennial moms and the real deal behind our recipe choices, produce selections, and overall food attitudes. She's also going to be cooking live on the air. That's a real treat for us. And finally, we have returning contributor, President of Wealth Management at Revere Securities, Kyle Wool, and he's going to be bringing us the latest in our Business and Buzz 3-Minute Express segment. Another fun treat. Number one, criminal defense attorney in New York City, representing some of the biggest names that are trending in legal scandals, will be delivering to us his 3-Minute Express scandal segment, and he collaborates with the latest in Hollywood legal news and Hollywood disasters. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after this. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. I'm your host, Zen Sams.
Moment of Zen is brought to you by ABK Cucina and their newest location in Soho. At ABK, you'll be dining in a relaxed and elegant atmosphere with friendly, attentive service that offers delicious dishes from Northern Italy and American cuisine. ABK caters to all dietary needs. A DJ entertains on Friday and Saturday evenings, and live upbeat jazz for Sunday brunch. Located at 15 Watt Street. Online at bjcucinasoho.com.
Welcome back, my beautiful friends. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. I am your host, Zen Sams. Now, coming up, we have our very famous Culinary and Wine segment brought to you by ABK Cucina. And this week, we are featuring foodie Michele Figliuolo, owner of FIG, F-I-G, which stands for Food is Good. Now, as she gets settled into the broadcast room, let's chat millennial moms and the real deal behind our recipe choices, produce selections, and overall food attitudes. Now, us moms are currently juggling a slew of different responsibilities, and we have a ton on our plate, literally. And millennial moms, approximately aged 25 to 40, we are a generation of influencers, and our influence is causing a ripple effect in today's consumer trends, especially those concentrated around food. Millennials are more conscious of food health than generations past, as well as more invested in finding food adventures and especially food that delivers new flavors. And this is especially true now that we are all grown up and starting our very own families. And as parents, the millennial mindset take on food is now being shifted towards healthier consumptions and recipes that are time efficient. About 1 in 4 millennials are already parents, meaning they are influencing what their families eat and are contributing to the eating patterns and habits that will guide the next generation of consumers. As sustainable diets continue to gain popularity, millennial moms are focusing less on calories and more on where our food comes from. And here to break it all down for us is Michele. She is a famous chef and food stylist. She's worked on ABC's Emmy award-winning show, The Chew, and Food Network's Chopped. She currently works as a chef, a culinary producer, and food stylist for Middleby Residential, which is a collection of premier international appliance brands such as La Cornue, AGA, and Viking. She's also a fellow 201 magazine cover model, written up by editor-at-large John Flynn, who very carefully selects all covers, giving credit where credit is due. Congrats and welcome to the show, Stunner.
Thank you so much for having me, Zen. I am so excited to be here with you and fellow 201 cover girls. We gotta, support each other, so I really appreciate it.
Without a doubt, you are stunning and glowing. I love your setup. For those of us listening, she is surrounded by incredible, tasty dishes and food and ingredients that she's going to prepare for us today. But briefly, wow, what an exciting career! And Bergen County is very lucky to have you, my dear. Tell me real quick before we dive into your food tips and favorite recipes, what inspired you to become a chef and food stylist?
So I really got my start growing up in an American Italian family. Food was everything. We always gathered around the table, Sunday dinner, and I loved seeing what food really did for people. It brought us together. It was a time for family to really make memories. So I went to culinary school. I went to Johnson and Wales in Providence, Rhode Island, and that's where I gained all my basic skills. So methods to cooking, your knife skills and all that. But really, I went to work in restaurants after that, and that's where I gained most of my knowledge. I was working the lines in some restaurants in Rhode Island, and then after that, I realized it's a little repetitive for me. I love it, but I don't know if it's as creative as I want it to be, and that's what led me into the food styling world and led me to the CHU.
And you do such a great job. For those of you that don't follow her on social media, you should, because all of her posts are very, very mouth-watering and very enticing. All right, so let's chat local produce, right? Here in Bergen County, big shout out to Closter Farms and Livestock Company, or even Allsteed Farms in Chester, New Jersey. But for us millennials, I feel like locally grown produce is almost a reflection of our personality, which is a major purchase driver. And the drive to purchase local also stems from especially my desire to help support local communities. And this is a trend that is especially strong among millennial moms. But buying locally, by buying locally, I believe that I can support not just my local business and farmers, but also our local economy. Walk me through some tips that help set the tone for healthy yet flavorful recipes in your kitchen, Michele.
Yes. So for myself, I hope to be a mom soon. I'm engaged right now, so maybe in the next few years. But I love to cook, and that's, what I do every day. But I'm also really passionate about eating healthy and making sure you know what you're putting into your body. So when you go to the store now, all these places, they're putting a lot of stuff into our food that we don't know about. I'm constantly checking the label, even if I'm getting something like olives or a cheese or this or that, because I want to know what's being put into it. And my thing is I like to keep it as simple as possible. So if there's a bunch of ingredients, I usually put it away. And I like to keep things at home also as simple, and really using those flavors like herbs and salt and using the quality ingredients to make it really stand out.
Agreed. And, even simple things like switching to organic produce where you're avoiding a lot of the pesticides will definitely add a lot and contribute to overall the amount of carcinogens that we're ingesting on a daily level with all the chemtrails being left behind. But okay, we have about 8.5 minutes left in the segment, and I want to get to the nitty gritty of it all. If you had about 15 or 20 minutes and you have less to prep a healthy, sustainable, and tasty dish, what would it be? And your clock starts now. You're going to walk us through the ingredients, but I still want to talk kitchen with you. So go.
Yes. So quickly, the best and quick thing, especially for moms on the go too, I go to the basics. I love a frittata. A frittata, you have your protein. You can throw whatever you have in your kitchen in that, any veggies, and then kind of put some good cheeses in there too, and your kids will love it. I have some regular mozzarella cheese. I have also, I'm going to put in today some peppers and onions. And then basically, we're just going to start with our farm fresh eggs. I have some eggs cracked already. It's about 8 eggs. I'm going to add 2 more in to make it 10. And this is so simple and fast. You could basically get this done, in under 20 minutes for sure. And the other part of it too is once you have it all made, you can keep it in the fridge, and it could be a lunch, it could be a snack, it could be a quick dinner with the salad on top, which that's what I would do. And if it's a salad on top, you could even serve this at a brunch with your girlfriends too, and then save it for the kids. It doesn't have to be 6 different meals for everyone, which is nice.
Absolutely. And guys, she's cooking live on the air right now, and she's walking us through this tasty dish, mouth-watering dish, mind you. And all the points that you just made are 100% valid. I love to start Alexa in the morning with eggs. Eggs is her staple. I mean, she's been eating them since she's probably 6 months old. She prefers egg whites, but I like to spice it up with ricotta cheeses and whatnot. Show me what you have going there. Walk me through your next step there.
So what I have here is I put a little bit of extra virgin olive oil in. I like to use ghee as well sometimes. I'm super into knowing what oils, because oils are so inflammatory and they're putting it into a lot of stuff now. So I like ghee, regular butter, olive oil, and that's pretty much it. But in here I have just some white onion and then really vibrant red, orange, yellow bell peppers here. I'm just going to saute those down a little bit, and then we're just going to really add the eggs in. The eggs are farm fresh eggs. I actually got them from A.M.O.X Farm, which is a farm in Bergen County that I love. They have so many great things, and I actually worked there when I was younger too. So it's, a little bit of my old history being at A.M.O.X Farm, which is great. Another thing too that you can do is you can always make these into little muffin rounds, and then you can freeze them. So if you need to pop them out, do a quick little snack for your kids, instead of making this large frittata, you can do that as well, and it's a little bit easier.
And for those of you, she just held up that were listening, she just held up a muffin rack with pre-cut out little cup muffin holders. That is a great idea. And of course, she's all about the visual presentation. So Michele, if, any styling tools, your tips to keep in mind that work great and help make dishes look enticing?
Yes. So on a photo shoot, sometimes I'm using little tweezers and things like that to make things perfect on a photo shoot for print. But on the shows like The Chew and when I was at Chopped, they had to be edible things. Sometimes they're not edible when you're working, but on those they had to be edible. So just using really vibrant vegetables, using fresh produce, and then also using those fresh herbs. You want to have color, you eat with your senses. So smell, taste, anything like that. If you can pull people in with the visual, they'll love it.
Exactly, right? Because as a food stylist, presentation is so important in your work, and it happens to be at the basis of all dishes. In fact, if it doesn't look pretty and enticing, I don't want to try it, is the mindset of not only just the average child, but even my husband. He's all about visual presentation. And as a mom, I can tell you that kids live by this. They love it when things look pretty, interesting, and fun. So what you do speaks to not just, the production and television world, so to speak, but also to the kids themselves, because they want to be, having a good time, and they want to feel good about what they're eating and feel, sit at the table and feel like they're part of something that is eventful. And that brings me back to the one thing I remember growing up that my grandmother always insisted on was Sunday lunch. The entire family had to gather around, typically after church, and she would make this insane amount of food. And I just remember eating from like 12 to 4 p.m. It was the craziest thing. But that's what growing up Greek does for you.
Exactly. And it's funny because we did the same thing. Actually, yesterday we went to my fiance's family on Staten Island, and we had the same thing. We had some pasta, and then we had, the meat and everything like that. But it's important to keep those traditions alive. And I think that you can implement them with the millennial twist too, by making them a little healthier. So you could still have that, but just try to go for, pastas with less ingredients, or if you could make it from scratch, if you have the time, do that. And those are kind of the traditions that you can implement in your life today too, and keep them alive.
Yes, of course, and of course, everything in moderation. Limit the consumption to red meat, to a moderation, and to something that's, that fits your dietary needs. And I think everything in moderation and balancing things out is more importantly. But the food choices that are available to us right now, and especially as millennials, are not something that was available per se 2 decades ago, because of the way that people have now woken up and risen up and saying, hey, listen, enough with the GMOs, enough with the pesticides, enough with the high fructose corn syrup. We are not going to breed a generation of children that are diabetic and high blood pressure and overweight and leads to cardiovascular disease, because this is the future and we have to focus on it. So having people like you around makes it easy, makes it simple, and it makes it fun. So thank you.
Oh no, of course. I do truly love it. I love to cook, but I also love to cook for my family and for myself and my fiance. We don't eat crazy all the time. We have to watch what you eat, but we could also make it taste really good too. And the thing that I just wanted to let you know too is I finished up this beautiful frittata. It's going to go in the oven for about 8 to 10 minutes. Once you give it a little bit of a scramble in the pan. Then when it comes out, you have a beautiful color on top. You have some reds, yellows, oranges. And then what I'm doing now for the adults, if you want to serve it to your kids, you totally can as well. But I'm just making a little salad to put on top. So a quick vinaigrette. I love extra virgin olive oil. I do a little balsamic, a little honey, and then just a little bit of salt. And then I'm going to give that a little bit of a mix. And then I'm just going to toss my salad in that. And that's going to be the simple salad on top. You could also add, I have here some cherry tomatoes I'm going to add to that, and add whatever you have around. Use what's fresh, use what's seasonal too. Using stuff that's seasonal is really important. And you could really keep this all week long in the fridge for the frittata and just add a different salad to it. And, girlfriends will love it, kids will love it, everyone will love this. So it's simple and delicious.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Michele, thank you so much for coming on today. And really quickly, favorite dessert. What's your favorite dessert?
So my favorite dessert, I would probably have to say my homemade tiramisu. I love tiramisu.
Ooh, love that. Well, maybe you should do a little post about it and tag us when you do make the tiramisu, and all our listeners and followers could follow you. You guys have to check her out on the gram. She's at Food is Great, right? _ FIG.
Food is good _ FIG.
Food is right. Food is good _ FIG. Lots of information to remember. But I do know her website. Head to Michele Figliuolo. So that's FIGLIUOLO. So Michele.
Yes, a lot of vowels.
.com. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. Michele, thanks so much for being an awesome guest and fun.
Moment of Zen is sponsored by CCP Digital, bringing you the best in blockchain, cryptocurrency, and NFTs. As the next generation of the internet approaches, CCP Digital gives you an inside look at what's to come so that you can stay ahead of the curve with the most exciting Web3 developments. Discover the latest news and updates by visiting their website at ccpdigital.com.
Hello, Moment of Zen followers and listeners. This is Kyle Wool, President of Wealth Management at Revere Securities, and I'm here to give us our monthly business bump. Now, obviously, since the middle of December, we've had a lot of volatility in the marketplace. You've seen the VIX index spike since Omicron has come back, and we've seen volatility in the markets to the downside, and recently we've also seen it coming back to the upside. I think a lot of this has to do with the uncertainty of Omicron. I think a lot of it has to do with the supply chain and things that are going on with the supply chains right now and the delays coming out of microchips from Taiwan and South Korea. I also think that the city in New York had a pretty big GDP hit from not having travelers come for the holidays. And one thing that I've seen is a massive bifurcation between the economic activity in New York and where I am right now in South Florida. It seems to be South Florida, you've got massive inflationary pressure on the price of luxury goods, on the price of real estate, and on the price of hotels, for that example. Typical hotels that might have been $300 to $400 2 years ago at this time are now trading at $700 to $800 a night. You're also seeing, to try to get a reservation at a trendy restaurant, these places are very difficult to get in, they're packed, and I think that's because you've had a descendancy from across the country of places like New York, Boston, and even California, which have been very constrained during COVID with not having restaurants open, not having ballparks open, people having very severe mask mandates like they're having up in Canada, north of the border, and places like Florida that actually have more of a normal way of life. And I think the GDP in Florida is expected to come in over 9%. I believe that's I don't know if it's an all-time high, but a multi-decade high. And I think this will continue for a while, but I do think if New York City and Boston and Chicago and Los Angeles do begin to reopen, those are highly attractive tourist destinations for Americans from all over the country and for Europeans from all over the country. So I do have hope. I do have hope that people will want to come to New York once again, come to Broadway, go to the beautiful museums that we have in New York City. And this seems to be, the CEO of Moderna was out the other day saying he thinks we're getting close to the end of the pandemic. Looks like the administration, even in the state of New York, Governor Hochul has recently pulled back the mandates of having masks indoor in workplaces and leaving it up to the companies themselves. And I think as that happens, we will have people get back to work. We will have people go to restaurants again in places like New York and Boston and Los Angeles. So I am very hopeful. And that's your weekly business bump and update from Kyle Wool, President of Wealth Management at Revere Securities. Thank you, and I'll throw it back to you, Zen.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Revere Securities. Revere is committed to building a relationship of trust in which they work closely with you to help you define your objectives, explore alternatives, and choose the financial and investment strategies that are most appropriate for you. Go to reveresecurities.com.
I'm Imran Ansari, legal expert and partner at ABK Law, bringing you the latest legal news here on A Moment of Zen. Sarah Palin, she lost her lawsuit against the New York Times. She sued the New York Times for defamation, saying that they published a false publication or information in a story. Well, the New York Times did get it wrong, but Sarah Palin didn't win her lawsuit. A jury came back and said this was not defamation. Why? Well, the law of defamation gives great rights to the press and acknowledges the First Amendment freedom of speech. And basically, if you have a public figure like Sarah Palin, if it's going to be a successful defamation claim for someone like that, a public figure, they're going to have to show that the defendant had actual malice. What's that mean? They knew that the statement was false, or they had a reckless disregard for the truth. Well, the jury came back and said, nope, the defendant, the New York Times, did not libel Sarah Palin, and they had a defense verdict. But Sarah Palin says that is not the end of her legal fight against the New York Times. She says she's going to take this up to the Supreme Court, and we're going to have to see what happens, because some of the conservative members of the court right now have indicated that they want to narrow the scope of a landmark case, the New York Times versus Sullivan, and that case established that standard of actual malice. So we're going to see what happens if Sarah Palin takes this up to the Supreme Court. A big settlement for the families of the tragic Sandy Hook school shooting. $73 million settlement between those families and Remington, the gun manufacturer. Why is that significant? Not just the number, but it indicates the first settlement with a gun manufacturer of that magnitude. And that shows that there may be precedent to come with these cases in these tragic mass school shootings, in which a gun manufacturer, rather than going to court, will acknowledge that they may be liable, and you're going to have these big settlements paid out. It's also a nod to gun safety, gun rights, and also the safety of children in the school. So that case has long-lasting impact. Even though it wasn't a decision in court, that settlement will probably indicate things to come in terms of these mass shootings and lawsuits against gun manufacturers. Also, a settlement with Prince Andrew with his accuser, Virginia Giuffre. Virginia Giuffre is someone who has claimed that Prince Andrew, she was trafficked to Prince Andrew by Jeffrey Epstein. Well, a settlement was reached yesterday between those two parties, Prince Andrew and Virginia Giuffre. It's an undisclosed amount, but that settlement indicates that that case is done. So I'm Imran Ansari, bringing you the latest in legal news here on A Moment of Zen, 710 WOR,
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Caldwell Soames Incorporated, investing globally in transformative businesses like Original Digital Corporation, or ODC. ODC develops advanced consumer and commercial fintech solutions such as OG Pay, which will transform the way you manage your money. From sending and receiving money globally for free, paying for goods and services in person and online, pay bills, buy and sell digital currencies, all while earning interest. OG Pay is easy to set up, FDIC insured, and your information is secured. Check out ogpay.com.
Welcome back, my beautiful friends. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. I am your host, Zen Sams. Now, coming up in our innovation and tech segment, brought to you by Caldwell Soames. We have returning contributor Paul Caldwell, who's chairman and CEO of Caldwell Soames. And today we are chatting NVIDIA and Omniverse, which is a new scalable multi-GPU real-time reference development platform for 3D simulation and design collaboration. And we're going to talk about this amazing revolutionary platform with Paul. We're also going to talk about crime and NFTs, wash trading and money laundering on the blockchain and its constituents, what makes this emerging asset class hack prone, and how do we stay ahead of the curve? Now, data from the Block Data dashboard, right, shows that in January of this year alone, the NFT transaction volume reached 6.13 billion. And then we have data from the Block research showing that for the whole of last year, the transaction volume of NFTs exceeded 13 billion, right? So trading volumes in January of 2022 alone were nearly half of what they were all of last year. This is very, very telling. Now, NFT is mainly supported by digital artworks and collectibles generated on the blockchain. And there are also many legal risks in the increasingly large market, right? Multiple reports have pointed out that the NFT market has risks such as fraud and the money laundering, and that these technological innovations are bringing on potential money laundering risks. And criminals are using illicit funds to buy NFTs and transact with themselves, create a record of the sale on the blockchain, and the NFTs can then be sold to unwitting individuals who will compensate the criminals with clean funds that are not related to the crime. Now, in addition to money laundering risks, Chain Analysis also monitors wash trading practices that exist in the NFT market. Now, wash trading is a method of market manipulation, which mainly refers to the simultaneous sale and purchase of the same financial instrument by investors in order to create misleading conditions in the market. Think about that. Now, Chain Analysis tracked one of the most prolific NFT wash traders who has made 830 sales to addresses they self-fund. Now, by buying and selling on their own, the wash trader pushes up the price of NFTs. So what does this all mean for you and me? Well, here to break it down is my expert at hand. Welcome to the show, Paul.
Hi, Zen. How are you?
Amazing, amazing. What is going on here? Talk to me.
I think in many respects, what's going on is human nature is going on. It seems that in a defined environment with defined regulatory framework and like the stock markets, for example, there's something called a wash sale rule, and it's a particular rule that's designed to exactly and specifically address this particular issue that you mentioned. With this wash trading, as it is, this is the simultaneous buying and selling, as you said, of a particular asset, and it's a way to trade that asset, and it really can become a sort of a disreputable market making activity. And I say disreputable because it's really not the buying and the selling of an asset one to another, you to me. I value it. You say, yeah, you're willing to pay that. Typical econometrics, simple stuff. And then you pay that, and it's okay. If I'm falsely making the market for a particular asset or group of assets because I can, and I do that, and then I say, hey, to you, hey, look, it's worth this much. That's what the world says, or that's what the market price is. Are you willing to pay? And you just happen to say, yeah, I'm excited about it. I'm willing to pay. That's one aspect of this.
So how do we mitigate this, and how do we stay ahead? Well, I mean, on the back end technologies, because there must be something.
There are technologies. I mean, you mentioned Chainalysis.
Yes.
In your opening, and Chainalysis is a firm that we work in our portfolio with our portfolio companies like Original Digital Corporation, ODC, and then the OG2D NFT marketplace, OGPay. We work with Chainalysis significantly in this particular area because they have the technologies that can help this resolve or solve or prevent a lot of this type of crime, because they have configs inside their platforms, but still their customer gets to set the management protocols in the configs as to what gets turned on or what filter gets turned off, or how lenient or how stringent do they want to be on transactions that come in. So it's still up to the user. So it's still very much a buyer beware situation.
I could totally see that. You know, there was a report that Chainalysis identified like 262 users who have sold an NFT to a self-financed address more than 25 times. And it was a total of 110 of these users collectively made nearly 8.9 million in profit from this activity, Paul. So what you're saying is very true. And as long as we stay ahead of the curve here, you know, I think that this is very much a buyer beware sort of, you know, educate yourself. Now let's move on to NVIDIA's Omniverse here, because there's something very unique and proprietary about this incredible platform, and it happens to live in one of your portfolios. Now, just to catch people up to speed, the Omniverse is NVIDIA's simulation and collaboration platform, and they're delivering essentially the foundation of the metaverse, the universe of virtual worlds that are all interconnected, so to speak. Talk to me about why this particular company is extremely important during this time of Web3 and everything we have going on.
Well, NVIDIA hasn't just been about innovation, although it's certainly an innovator, but it hasn't just been about that. You know, we added it to our publicly traded enterprise fund years ago because NVIDIA represents a company that gets it in the market. They get the market. They understand the market. And when they started building chips for cameras in cars, we realized that, well, okay, this is interesting. And then their order flows started to grow and these sorts of things. And that for us represents an opportunity. You know, at Caldwell Soames, we live at the intersection of value as value investors, but also we're also looking for the upside potential of things. And so we saw a company that was well run, well managed. So we like NVIDIA just overall. Some of its new items, its new entrants into the markets aren't just disruptive. They're not just innovative. They're actually transformative. They're transforming the way people think about how they do some things. Omniverse is a great example. It's for it's for creators.
Amazing. It's an incredible platform.
And what a great idea, right? When you have the metaverse, the megaverse, the multiverse, the omniverse. We have more verses.
I know. It's very funny. You're right. We have tons of verses. And, you know, at least NVIDIA's Omniverse, this is truly one of those platforms for simulating and connecting to virtual worlds. That's the entire foundation, right? And in the world of Omniverse, digital content designers can meet virtually to develop really essentially complex 3D content in real time. So this Omniverse obeys the laws of physics, really, and it could simulate particles, fluids, materials. I was looking at the website. It's very well thought out, and I'm very impressed just by this is an incredible platform. So very, very good find there, Mr. Caldwell, Innovation and Tech.
Yeah, we like NVIDIA. And I mean, as I said, across the board, well-managed business, numbers are good. Growth potential is significant. And I got to tell you another thing just quickly about NVIDIA is that with this Omniverse, if you really think about everything else that's going on and the transactional layer with commerce, when you talk about Fintech or DeFi, there's all this going around, these valuations that are through the roof on these companies, literally. Even I probably could call it a bubble, and that would be okay at this point, right? But the Fintech valuations are crazy. But the point is that look at NFTs and look at how NFTs are being represented these days in these gaming platforms, inside the multiverse, inside virtual worlds. And as those worlds get created and those platforms are able to facilitate commerce and transactions, it's sort of this marriage of fintech with the creative side of things. So I think it's really kind of where content, context, and infrastructure can meet, and creators can do some amazing things there. So I think NVIDIA has really hit the nail on the head again with this in that particular area.
Without a doubt, without a doubt. And very lastly, I mean, we have about 3 minutes left, but I definitely wanted to address, the largest crypto hack of 2022 so far, where we have Wormhole. It's a token bridge that allows users to send and receive crypto between Ethereum, Solana, Binance, Polygon, and all of your usual suspects, without the use of a centralized exchange, right? So this is very important for our listeners. But this is the largest crypto hack of the year so far, and we're only like 2 months in. And the second largest decentralized finance hack to date. Now, the Wormhole team has offered a $10 million bug bounty for the return of the funds, so to speak. But the hack took place on Solana's side of the bridge, and there are fears that Wormhole's bridge to Terra, so to speak, could be similarly vulnerable. Talk to me, if this continues, right? This is a problem that we're seeing over and over again. It defies the actual trust the blockchain provides itself, on which it is, verified ledger and tracking system. So now what?
Well, I mean, it's like anything else. I think if it's when I was a kid, my dad told me, hey, look, if you run into anything that sounds just too good to be true, it probably is. So really look into these things. And I think, the crypto crowd will tell you, and I talk with them almost very regularly, a couple times a week, very high level people in the crypto crowd. But their idea of these kinds of things is that's okay. That's what crypto is. I mean, it's decentralized. It's not controlled. It doesn't have rules. You can just move from here to here. But that's also the problem with it, is the fact that you're able to do those things makes it inherently more risky from a hack perspective, if you want to talk about hacks, but from an intrusion point of view. And it's much easier to exploit. And any professional hacker will tell you it's much easier to exploit something like that than it is something that has checksum intermediaries in the middle, like a Chainalysis or some technology that's specifically designed to catch these kinds of problems and also to prevent these kinds of hacks from happening. I've even seen in the crypto space recently some basic denial of service DOS hacks that go back, to the 80s, for goodness sakes. These things were developed, right, and they still work today because some of these platforms are so open. So I would just say, buyer beware. I hear that from Joel Bin, the ODC CEO, Original Digital Corporation. That's in our private companies fund. He says it all the time about blockchain, junk in, junk out, and he says it all the time about crypto and these peer-to-peer systems and everything. It's really buyer beware because they're easily exploited.
Absolutely. Well, listen, thank you so much for coming in and shedding some light on a lot of complicated matters, Paul. It's always very delightful chatting with you.
Hey, same with you, Zen. Take care. Thank you.
Got it. That was Paul Caldwell, CEO of Caldwell Soames. Now, guys, as is the case with any new technology, NFTs offer potential for abuse. It's important that as our industry considers all the ways this new asset class can change how we link the blockchain to the physical world, we also build products that make NFT investments as safe and secure as possible. And OG Pay and the Original 2 Digital Corporation, two companies within the Caldwell Soames portfolio, are doing exactly that. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Caldwell Soames Incorporated, investing globally in transformative businesses like Original Digital Corporation, or ODC. ODC develops advanced consumer and commercial fintech solutions such as OG Pay, which will transform the way you manage your money. From sending and receiving money globally for free, paying for goods and services in person and online, pay bills, buy and sell digital currencies, all while earning interest. OG Pay is easy to set up, FDIC insured, and your information is secured. Check out ogpay.com.
Welcome back, my beautiful friends. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. I am your host, Zen Sams. Today, in our Fly Me to the Moon segment, we're chatting with one of Virgin Galactic's founding astronauts and returning contributor, Per Wimmer, and we're discussing space tourism as it prepares for takeoff over the next 48 months. There has always been significant interest in the final frontier, and as commercial space companies work to make space tourism a viable market, we may not have to wait too long for the price of admission to come back down to earth. Exciting scientific developments are funded by impressive levels of investment. In 2017, 120 venture capital funds put $3.9 billion into commercial space companies. Now, while most private aerospace companies are research-focused, a market for sending non-astronauts to space is emerging as flights become autonomous and no longer require a trained astronaut to operate the craft. In the next decade, the value of the space industry as a whole is expected to double from $400 billion to $800 billion. While Bezos was expected to be the first of the private space entrepreneurs to board a sub-orbital flight, he was beaten by Richard Branson. Virgin Galactic has a primary focus on tourism, and the Virgin brand experience is a selling point of Virgin Galactic's offering, which is advertised on luxury experience websites even as of now. For $250,000 US, a Virgin Galactic space tourist can expect a 90-minute tour after 3 days of training. Though COVID-19 saw the slowest quarter for space infrastructure since 2009, last year was the largest on record for investment in infrastructure, reaching over $5 billion. In the first quarter of this year, space infrastructure companies raised a combined $3.6 billion. So things are moving very fast, my friends. And here to break it all down and dive deeper is astronaut Per Wimmer. Welcome back. So nice to have you on again, superstar.
Thank you so much. Wonderful to be back on the air here together with you.
Yes, these segments are always so fun and insightful. Wow, you are sporting quite the outfit. For those of you that are listening, he is wearing a fabulous space jacket. Please tell me how this came to appear on your body. This is quite intriguing.
Yeah, thank you. I thought I'll dress up for the occasion today. This is actually a commemorative Apollo 11 space jacket that I was given for the 50th anniversary of the Apollo 11 landing on the moon. And it was actually a big event that took place at the Reagan Center just outside LA. And I was there together with Buzz Aldrin, part of the Apollo 11 mission, and Charlie Duke, who was Capcom on Apollo 11 and later went up on Apollo 16, both fabulous astronauts, really, really wonderful people. So it was a great delight. And for good measure, Walt Cunningham was also there. So I was really, truly in the presence of history there. And yes, that also led to this jacket that I kept forever and ever as a good memory. But it has a very wonderful sort of late 60s, early 70s feel to space.
You wear it well.
It looks good.
You wear it well. Okay,
Thank you so much.
well, let's go back to the basics here, right? And I'm going to want to circle back for our listeners, but an important distinction in space tourism is between suborbital space flight. Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin and Richard Branson's Virgin Galactic are both developing suborbital flights. Talk to me about orbital flights versus suborbital flights and what they mean for space tourism.
Yeah, sure. So there's been a bit of debate about where does the frontier of space truly lie. Most people would agree certainly above 80 kilometers, and some would argue even 100 kilometers. Depends who you ask, to be perfectly honest. But around that 80 to 100 kilometers mile is kind of where you find suborbital propositions such as Galactic, such as Blue Origin. Once you start to actually leave that and you go into lower Earth orbit, or LEO, and you start to head up towards the International Space Station and beyond, you are then doing an orbital space flight. And that's where you can effectively fly around the Earth if you so desire, and if the rocket is strong enough for it, or indeed you can fly all the way up to the moon. So that's the difference between suborbital and orbital. In terms of pricing, I know you talked a lot about numbers a minute ago. It has a very, very big cost implication. It might not sound a lot, because the International Space Station cruises around 400 kilometers up. So from 100 kilometers to 400, not a big difference in numbers, but a very, very big difference in terms of capital required to get that extra mile up, or those extra miles up, in terms of complexity, safety, etc. So there's actually a very big difference. And in terms of cost, you said you can fly to space. Actually, on Galactic now, the ticket price is $450,000. To go orbital, you're probably looking at a minimum spend of $50-60 million. So very significant capital
Wow,
increase
that's
once you start.
very, very different. Yeah, thank you for that information. Now, well, despite numerous obstacles, right, from cost to safety to technological restrictions, space tourism is a sector that is really set to develop rapidly over the next decade. And the successful development of reusable launch systems is a big step towards lowering costs enough to make it a viable market. Talk to me real quick about the importance of these reusable rockets and what that means for the dollar and for space tourism in general.
Reusability is really the key thing to bringing down the cost, and this was the sort of things that Elon Musk realized early on when he tried to initially get involved with Russian rockets, and they kind of didn't want to talk to him, so he ended up starting SpaceX. And one of the very key drivers were reusability. So when you see a Falcon 9 rocket launch, you see that a lot of it is coming back down to Earth as being reused for the next launch, etc. Same with Galactic. Yes, there are parts of the engine that'll be replaced, etc., but it's essentially the same rocket and same mothership that goes up again. And same with Blue Origin. So it is very much the key is reusability. If you look at space flights before, so take the shuttle when that was flying, when NASA was flying it, you would look at an all-in cost per flight of roughly $500 million plus minus. With SpaceX and Falcon 9, you look at a price of about $62 million. So an enormous saving, and that's what private enterprise can do, bringing down the cost and making things more efficient. But you couldn't do that without reusability.
Exactly. And, while the only way up to space is via a rocket, there are two ways to come back down, right? Via a winged vehicle like the Space Shuttle or Galactic Spaceship 2, or via capsule like Apollo or Blue Origin's New Shepard. Now, these experiences are quite different. Please explain.
Sure. They are very, very different. I mean, the classic Apollo would be a capsule where you splash down in the water, you got 3 parachutes that come up, or indeed if you're flying Soyuz, which is the workhorse of the Russian program, you would be landing somewhere in out of nowhere in Kazakhstan with 1 parachute, but also a capsule. And you effectively experience the equivalent of a small car crash because you get that bump when you land. Now, when you're sitting in a Soyuz capsule, you actually have custom-made, a very, very comfortable, almost like a cradle for adults, kind of seating, and so you are comfortable, but you do go through a mini car crash when you land, and that's expected.
That's
when you fly on Galactic, it's a different thing, because we would fly up to an altitude of 16 kilometers, drop down the rocket, and then up it goes into space, and upon return, re-entry into the atmosphere. And then the way it lands is basically at the same spaceport that it took off from in New Mexico. And it lands just like the shuttle would land, 3 legs down, and it lands on the runway horizontally, just like you've seen the space shuttle do.
Yeah. And, and these rough rides is kind of what makes me a little bit not nervous, but I mean, going up to space is requiring a lot, and the potential for private space travel is growing, and it's only natural to wonder, what if something does go wrong? Well, with more chances to send people into space comes the greater potential for mishaps. In the time since we figured out how to launch humans into space, 18 people have died. Although it's pretty much impossible to find a working astronaut with a serious health issue, the case is not the same for tourists, especially if those tourists are older. So what do you do then? I mean, what happens if there is this kind of mishap or even death per se in space?
Sure. I mean, the biggest risk, if you like, to the mission, people think always it's the launch, because you have such a release of energy. And when you see the shuttle goes up, there's all these flames, and it all looks like big fireworks. But actually, the biggest part of the biggest risk is actually re-entry. When you come back into Earth, you've been out in space, and you come in and you experience 3,000 degrees of centigrade outside the capsule or your spaceship. And you have to come in at the right angle, because if you come in too soft, you would bounce back out again, and good luck coming back down from there. You're stuffed, basically. Or you come in too steep and you'll burn because the heat is just too much. But what do you do if something happens? Well, here's the good news and the bad news, if you like. If you were to die in space, it does go pretty quickly. So the biggest risk for a NASA astronaut would be if he or she does an EVA, i.e. steps outside the rocket and has the famous white suit on, space suit on. The biggest risk is to be hit by a little micro meteorite that will go through the suit in no time. If that were to happen, you die within 10 to 15 seconds. First thing that would happen is you would decompress. Your water in your skin, your blood, and all that would evaporate. So within 10-15 seconds, you're toast, basically. So it does go enormously quickly. And obviously, if you're doing an EVA, you'll just be hanging out there and you basically float away. If an accident were to happen within the International Space Station, which could be likely as well, that could be hit by something. Or if an astronaut were to die up there, that's actually not good news, not only for the astronaut, but also for the fellow astronaut, because the biohazard of having a dead corpse in space is potentially a desert. I mean, a risk. It could rot.
This is all fascinating. We have about 1 minute left, so I want to make sure we get it all in.
Sure. No, absolutely, so that's a big risk. But what do you do? How do you get it back down? Interesting enough, NASA doesn't have procedures for this. You'd have thought that they would have it. They're working on it. But what do you do? What you have to do is put the body in the coldest place, just like you would do on a submarine if something goes wrong. You put the body next to the torpedoes because that's the coldest place, so it slows down the decay of the body. That's what you have to do as much as possible. And then you can either send the body out into space, or you'd have to find a way to decompose it.
Wow. This is all interesting, incredible stuff that we actually have to be speaking about on a real world, real time level, because space travel is where we are headed. And this is something that has to be addressed sooner versus later. So thank you for coming on, my friend, and enlightening us once again on our Fly Me to the Moon segment.
Thank you. See you in space at Astra.
Yes, absolutely. I'm coming with you. Everybody, you have to check out Mr. Per Wimmer. Check out his website, wimmerspace.com, or you can check him out on the gram at wimmerspace and at per.wimmer. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. We'll be right back after this. That was our Fly Me to the Moon segment.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Tempus, the next generation of the engagement economy, allowing people to make money on their data and earn cryptocurrency for the time they spend on things they already currently love to do. With Tempus, brands will have the ability to pay you directly for interacting with apps, watching videos, playing games, and more. Tempus, the time is now. Engage and earn.
We're at the end of our date, my dear friends. Remember to join me right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, every Saturday night from 9 to 10 p.m. Or go to 710wor.iheart.com/A Moment of Zen. Remember, we're now on TV. Download the KP Media TV app on Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, or Android. Or tune in at watch.kpmedia and catch A Moment of Zen on the Impact Live channel Sundays at 11 a.m. Eastern. Thank you for listening to A Moment of Zen. It's been an absolute pleasure being your